In this summary of the Club Random Podcast's conversation between host Bill Maher and the guest Riley Gaines centers mainly around the subject of professional swimming, the impact of chlorine, and the controversial matter of trans women participating in women's sports. Maher expresses his concerns about professional swimmers being exposed to chlorinated water for hours a day, suggesting it could lead to adverse health effects. Riley, a swimmer herself, shares that she lost her eyebrows due to heavy exposure to chlorine. The conversation then shifts to the effect of COVID-19 and the controversy surrounding mask wearing, with Maher criticizing the practice, claiming it ineffective, and arguing that it leads to people inhaling their own exhaled carbon dioxide. The discussion later pivots towards the movie Barbie, specifically the fresh expectations and popular views. The hosts then take up a hot-button societal issue of trans women in women's sports. Specifically, the case brought up was of the trans swimmer Leah Thomas, whose participation in women's sports has sparked controversy. Gaines, who has competed against Thomas, recounts her feelings about the situation and experiences she had, including the awkwardness she felt by Thomas's presence in the women's locker room. Maher and Gaines take different stances on Thomas identifying as a woman. Gaines takes a stand stating that she sees trans women as a subset of male, while Maher, although agreeing that it's a different category, sees trans as a real phenomenon and argues that they should be protected and respected even though the current language does not accommodate that. The conversation steers towards the associated physical implications of a trans woman like Thomas swimming in a women's competition. Maher humorously hypothesizes that having male genitalia could either be advantageous or disadvantageous, suggesting they could serve like the fan of a surfboard or cause unnecessary drag during swimming. In response, Gaines shares that the tight swimsuits women wear during competitions are likely to suppress the package, but she ultimately suggests that it might be a disadvantage. Through their exchange, Maher navigates the contrasting perspectives, showcasing an understanding and respect for both sides of the argument while being unafraid to question traditional views or stances. Throughout the discussion, Gaines provides a personal perspective, amplifying the realities faced as an athlete competing against a trans woman in sport. The Club Random Podcast dives deeper into the controversial topic of trans women participating in women's sports, especially amidst the polarized political climate. Bill Maher and Riley Gaines explore societal norms and the nuances of gender politics in today's era. The conversation leans towards acknowledging the significant differences between male and female athletes in terms of physics, strength, and other attributes. Maher points to an article in The Atlantic as an example of mainstream media promoting this view. He criticizes the notion that differences between men and women could be a consequence of socialization, echoing Gaines's sentiment that such distinctions are innate. The discourse veers into the legislation associated with gender issues, specifically focusing on Title IX, which was passed to give women an equal opportunity in sports. Maher sees this as a victory for liberalism. He, along with Gaines, is critical of contemporary perspectives that, according to them, jeopardize Title IX's equality mandate by pushing for policies that disadvantage cisgender women. Meanwhile, the discussion also scrutinizes the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, presented by Republican Representative Greg Sweeb. Gaines perceives it as a socially conscious and logical step towards providing fair competition, but is critical of the bill being voted down by all 203 Democrats, calling it out as a setback in protecting women's rights. Maher and Gaines express their concern on how the societal understanding of gender and sexuality is evolving, specifically the LGBTQ+ movement. They argue the community, which once fought for equality, now seeks to usurp or redefine existing rights. The hosts discuss their disconcertment over the growing number of subgroups within the LGBTQ+ movement, suggesting it might further complicate the understanding and acceptance of gender diversity among the general public. As they talk about the historical and ongoing struggle for rights and recognition faced by diverse genders and sexualities, Maher and Gaines emphasize the need for balance. They agree on how crucial it is not to dismiss the past struggles while understanding that things have come a long way. They confer a need to adjust perspectives and approaches based on the present context rather than dwell on misreported or overblown identity politics. They argue about the dangers of overemphasizing victimhood and how it can deter progress, insisting that most of modern society has moved beyond outdated biases and prejudices over race and gender. Finally, the engaging conversation meanders into the area of personal choice, with Maher defending his right to have preferences in his romantic interests. The hosts critique those who label such preferences as bigotry, reiterating that the right to individual preference should not be undermined. They also acknowledge the complexities of concurrent debates on racism and agree on the progress society has made, albeit recognizing there is still progress to be made. Continuing the conversation, Maher and Gaines dive into their individual political leanings and perceptions of President Trump. As they navigate the complexity of their perspectives, Maher positions himself as no fan of Trump's, but he manages to convey his reservation about demonizing everyone who supports him. Both Maher and Gaines tread their political divides delicately, advocating for the necessity of finding common ground despite disagreeing with each other's political choices. Maher's critique of contemporary movies and media tropes leads to a spirited discussion about societal norms, where he takes issue with what he deems as overly saccharine portrayals of family values and Christian ideals. To this, Gaines, who Maher teases voted for Trump, shed light on the agenda behind her involvement in movies like Santa Freedom. However, she refutes Maher's assertion, clarifying that the film focuses on essential social issues like human trafficking rather than a forceful promotion of Christian and family values. During the discussion on conspiracy theories associated with trafficking cases and the accusations thrown at celebrities, Maher expresses his disparagement of the QAnon movement's baseless claims. Gaines takes a stand, forecasting that such outlandish theories do nothing but fuel hysteria and undermine the pressing social issues that need attention. The conversation develops into broader societal concerns like youth education and generational perspectives of America's history. Both Maher and Gaines find common ground in their concerns about the lack of appreciation among Gen Z for the progress the country has accomplished over the decades. They criticize the education system for creating an echo chamber, spawning a generation that views America through a heavily flawed and ungrateful lens. Gaines also expresses her perception of the devaluing of masculinity in contemporary society. She believes that the necessary balance between men and women's roles in society has been disrupted to the detriment of both sexes. Maher, also an advocate for balanced gender roles, posits that the push to demonize masculinity is indicative of an unhealthy societal trend. Moving towards Gaines's life, Maher digs into her career plans. She initially wanted to pursue dentistry, but her activism work has compelled her to rethink her future. They both lament the hefty financial barriers associated with higher education, hinting at potential reform requirements in the education sector. The conversation drifts back to societal issues, touching on what Maher views as an emerging culture of oversensitivity. They discuss the transformation of language and symbols under the pressure of political correctness, expressing their shared disbelief at how ridiculous some adjustments seem to be. By the end, Maher and Gaines reinforce their shared belief in the importance of strong, balanced gender roles, hope for resolutions during hard times, and assert that despite differences, it is crucial to ensure continued dialogue and understanding between contrasting viewpoints. At this point in the discussion, the conversation pivots into the exploration of electoral politics. Maher challenges Gaines for her support of Trump, emphasizing his unease with Trump's refusal to accept defeat, arguing that it contradicts the very essence of masculinity. The contention between Maher's political preferences and Gaines's is evident as they reveal whom they each voted for in the last election. As they assess the potential contenders in the upcoming elections, they discuss the credibility of Trump's multiple trials, deliberating whether the indictment appears corrupt. Given none were pointed towards Biden, both Maher and Gaines underscore the need for integrity, clearly echoing divergent views on election accuracy and legitimacy, particularly in the wake of the 2020 election. The dialogue escalates into examining the plausibility of electoral corruption, specifically addressing the Pennsylvania and Arizona 2022 midterms. Maher acknowledges the Trump voter's perspective, who perceives Trump as the only voice challenging societal insanity. They agree on his appeal to the masses, despite his controversial style and character. Both discussed Trump's popularity within the Republican Party, a stark contrast to Biden's struggle to confront the woke culture within his party. Despite their significant political disagreements, Maher and Gaines reaffirmed the importance of maintaining rapport across political divides. As the dialogue moves towards the sensational Epstein scandal, Maher laments the unfortunate timing of its exposure, acknowledging the reinforcement it provided to QAnon's child trafficking conspiracy theories. Following the discussion on the Epstein scandal, the podcast transition unravels into an intriguing narrative of personal encounters and confrontations. Maher probed Gaines on her encounters, experiences, and feuds in the world of politics and activists, majorly focusing on her interactions with Katie Porter. Gaines, having watched Katie Porter speak about her before on Maher's show, had the opportunity to cross paths with Porter in Washington, D.C. Gaines took this opportunity to engage in dialogue to understand what exactly Porter disagreed with her on. Porter only assisted with a cryptic comment, "Congrats on being a competitor," before briskly walking away. They discussed Porter's encounter, analyzing her response, with Maher indicating how the role of politicians often forces them to choose careful words to diffuse potential political PR pitfalls. The interaction revealed a part of the adversarial yet cautious demeanor of politics and policy discussion, an aspect that both Maher and Gaines agree could be taxing compared to their respective fields. Moving on to an entirely different subject, they talk about Dylan Mulvaney, another important figure in their conversation. Gaines disagreed with Porter's admiration for Mulvaney, arguing that he also pursues clicks and likes, just as Porter had accused Gaines of doing. Maher, however, unveiled a different perception of Mulvaney, acknowledging Mulvaney's exuberant happiness to be part of these discussions. Fee for speaking on women's empowerment becomes a subject of discussion, particularly about Dylan Mulvaney. They debate whether Mulvaney has the legitimacy to charge an extravagant fee for his take on women's empowerment, leading to Maher insisting that not many people in the country worry about qualifications anymore. As the dialogue nears its end, they reflect on their fundamental disagreements without losing their mutual appreciation for each other's perspectives. They both value the essence of celebrating differences in a space that encourages candid, respectful dialogues. As they part ways, Maher cheekily encourages Gaines, affirming his support for her, not in dentistry, but in swimming sans eyebrows. Check out the full podcast by clicking the link in the description below. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for listening to this podcast summary episode of the Pod Slice.